A new ban and limited list, a bunch of live stream reveals. Clash is getting some big updates before it releases next week. And Dan made some comments in Discord I want to go over because I want to get more eyes on this giant thread that he posted in Discord. So that, more news, Elestrals, etc. Hey, what's up, everybody? That's how YouTubers do their opening videos, right? Because I'm a real YouTuber now. I have over 1,000 subs. Thank you for that, everybody. I appreciate all of that. But yeah, we're going to go over a little news video. I have a lot to talk about. And we're going to start with Clash because that's going to be the shortest part of this video, hopefully. A lot of really cool cards to look at, a ban list to look at. And yeah, Dan made some comments in Discord. So let's just jump into it. I appreciate all of you for your subscriptions, getting me over 1,000 subs. I've been here for a while. Clash, let's talk about it because that's going to get even more people interested in Elestrals. So Clash is going to get a pretty large, I don't want to say large update, but it's a significant update tomorrow where all the accounts are going to get wiped. People have been able to open Pandora's boxes, etc., rank themselves in the ladder all the way through this kind of beta period. So they're giving you until tomorrow at 12 noon ET to grind ladder and get those top 25 spots. I don't think they're going to reward us anything for getting there. I'm like 19th, 20th place right now, which is cool. That means I'm a good player, I think, on Clash. So that's really cool, but if you haven't started grinding, you're probably not going to be able to grind up to the top 25 spot within a day. Sorry, but if you're close, maybe do try it. You have to be about gold 5 to be top 25 right now. So reset there. Additionally, I believe there's going to be another reset on the 29th when they release Clash Open Public Beta. I thought I read that somewhere in Discord. It's not on their little news slide that they dropped, but I did believe I read that they're resetting accounts twice. Once tomorrow and once for the 29th. Additionally, we have new UI and gameplay tutorials, which should help with the onboarding process, whatever those end up being. Elestrals isn't a difficult game to get into or figure out the rules of. Most people figure out in a couple of games, but it will be nice to have more onboarding features for casters to jump into Clash with, especially since it's a new game to a lot of people, and there's not a ton of resources about Clash yet or about playing the game that people are going to have access to if they've never played Elestrals before, so having more gameplay tutorials is going to be beneficial for those players. And also, hopefully, will help players onboard themselves with some of the new cards, or not necessarily new cards, but cards that are new to them, because there's a lot of cards in Elestrals that people will have to get acquainted to, especially having all of them at once will lead to, well, I have all these cards to look at, what am I doing with this game? And then a bunch of new cards that are getting added to Clash. I don't want to say new cards. They're cards that we've had, but they're new to Clash. So, Salashade for your Mill enjoyers. I've played a few games with Mill. It's alright in Clash. Salashade's a really, really powerful card that I think people sleep on just because, yeah, it gets outed by a lot of things. But it is a card that snowballs and attack stat and kind of what it does for Mill really fast. A really cool card. I would like to see people play it more. I understand why it's not played, but it's a cool card to have in Clash. Urzmog, surprised that's not in Clash already because I think every other Ursa is. All the Ursa cards are in Clash. I didn't even realize Urzmog wasn't in there yet. It is now. The entire Fossa Cell line, which is really cool because Fossa Cell is a deck that constantly does like 4-3, 5-2 showings in Premier tournaments. It's like right on the cusp of being like an A tier deck. It's definitely in the like B or upper C tier decks. I would like to see people cook with it a lot more into Clash. It's definitely something I want to play with a bunch in Clash. See if we can kind of push that up to a topping list. Bloom is okay. Now, I'm excited for Bloom because I want to play an Ankle Shock, Ankle Surge, Earth Nexus deck. Yes, it's a Thunder card that wants to be in an Earth Nexus pile. Having Bloom will allow you to kind of do the Ankle Shock bread and butter, which is like Ankle Shock attack. In battle step, you Bloom it, pump it up to an 8 attacker, hit for some damage, ascend into Ankle Surge, punch for more damage, or on your opponent's attack, they attack with like the Eddy because you put your shock and defense, the Eddy it, and you go, cool, aha, gotcha moment with the Bloom. You pump it up, you get your Ankle Surge on your opponent's turn, allowing you to just immediately on your main phase, draw a bunch of cards, discard a bunch of cards, do stuff with Ankle Surge. So Bloom does a lot for at least one deck in Clash, super cool. Tap up Gloombat, you got some of your special cast situations, and Heliolith for all your scrap enjoyers. And there are a lot of artifact lists going around in Clash because of fire artifacts, so Heliolith is probably a card that will help a lot of those players play artifact decks, even though it already doesn't need that much help. So that's pretty much it for Clash. Again, big wipe tomorrow, another wipe on the 29th before release, to my knowledge, and lots of really cool stuff to take a look at. All right, so now let's talk about the ban and limited update for Elestrals. Now, there's a lot to talk about here. So I'll try not to spend too much time on stuff that a lot of people probably already interacted with a ton of. I'm just a little late to the party, but I want to talk about everything going on. So let's talk about the limits. So there's a limit of 1 to Kinleo, Morlith, and Hurricane. Kinleo to 1 doesn't surprise me. I don't think it surprised anybody, but it's also a card that I don't necessarily know if it needed to get hit yet. We do see more fire decks being more powerful and Elestrals, Kinleo being more useful, more used. It's a card that's consistently searchable through things like Smoltuga. We saw Bo, I think Bo was playing the Smoltuga list. We saw people play Smoltuga to search out Kinleo in these kind of fire control-y tempo lists, and Kinleo is very powerful in those lists, and the ability to just search for Kinleo makes the one copy Kinleo means you out it, you're done with dealing with Kinleo for most of the game, unless they have Rise from the Ashes, also limited. So, fine hit. I didn't need to get hit, I don't think, but I understand why I got hit, and I think people are just like, yeah, that's fair. The Morlith to 1, also something that I think people expected. Pretty straightforward. Morlith to 1, it's to hamper a little bit of the Blitztrick strategy. The Morlith as an 8/6 is pretty powerful. It's an 8/6 that comes with a bunch of 4/6 bodies. Your opponent always seems to hit Cedar Soar, and then you play the deck and you can never hit Cedar Soar. That's how that works. So having Morlith to just 1 means, are you going to play No Stone on turn 4? Probably not. Are you going to play Avalanche in its place? Probably not. You're probably just going to go and build a better deck with more counter runes and interaction now. They have 2 slots freed up, so did that hamper the Blitztrick deck? A little bit, but did it actually reduce its power level a ton? No, but it should help at least some of the feels bad kind of high roll-y parts of Blitztrix feel a little bit better, kind of like how the Rise from limit makes the Blitztrix deck feel a little bit less high roll-y, a little bit better to play against. And lastly, Hurricane. So this is a limit because of some of the aggro stuff. We saw a lot of Pantera, a lot of Pigs, a lot of just kind of these blow up back row, snowball into these super aggressive play decks. Do really well and not feel interactive because Hurricane destroys with the back row, and Elestrals is a game that's kind of very much built off the back row right now, which we'll get into at the end of the video with Dan's comments about that later, about back row and Elestrals. So wait for that. But yeah, so Hurricane is a card that everyone seems to really want going out of base set into Frostfall era. Oh, we need a card to deal with all the back row, yada, yada, yada. Okay, here it is. It's got a very, I don't want to say very restrictive cost, but it's got a restrictive enough cost 3, and your opponents can still chain to it, stuff like that. So it's a card that people wanted, and now that we have it, realize, okay, this card plus aggressive cards that snowball doesn't work for the game super well. Limit to 1. Fair enough. Could have gotten banned. Maybe. Could it have stayed unbanned? Also, maybe. It's kind of going to depend on how Lifestream goes or where we're going forward in Firestorm into Lifestream. Again, Dan has a bunch of comments on counter runes and back row that we'll go over to later, but Hurricane, I understand why it's banned. Good hit, probably. We'll see if now all of a sudden set 3, set 4 past Rabbit is back to being the meta play and tempo is just everywhere again. So yeah, and if you really want to play Hurricane, search it with Hypofin. That's an option. Hypofin's okay, I think. And then the big crust, or the big part of what we're talking about today, that was the crust. Now we're talking about, I guess, the meat potatoes of our weird banned pie. Like a Void Champion Artemis is banned. Asterisk. It's a banned card that Dan said that they are eroding to give it a new effect that basically allows it only to special cast Werepups based on the number of suppressed Elestrals or special cards your opponent controls. So you don't get Like Void plus a bunch of bodies unless you are actively playing a deck that wants to suppress a bunch of cards on your opponent's board to then let you go into Like Void. This is basically the Like Void that should have existed. It's not going to be eroded and back in legal until Lifestream comes out, if I remember correctly. So it's effectively banned for Firestorm. The big conversation of this card is why ban it and errata it when they have, like, we have the Escape from Tartarus mechanics and stuff going on. Dan said something he wants to just kind of try out with this card to reasonable response if people don't like erratas. People would like to prefer that their cards say what the card means and have the capability that if the card is no longer a problem in the future, that it could come back off the list and be fine. Which is something that I think Like Void Champion Artemis would be fine in the future, because right now it is a very frustrating card, but I don't necessarily think it's it's a strong card, but I don't think it's as strong as needing a ban. I think it's good that it's banned just for the frustrating play patterns it produces. Kind of like how Blizzstrix at full power is frustrating to just your opponent drops 4, 2 drops on the board, and it feels like an insurmountable odds, yet you can still fight back against it. Life Void is similar, where it's kind of got this really high rolling potential, and it feels really bad to just see your opponent go uninteractable combo, drop 3 bodies on board. Frustrating, yes. Is it too powerful? No, because we've seen decks have the capabilities to answer it and deal with it and play against it. And also your opponent's adding, bricks to their hand where now they're going -1 or 2 because they drew some of the combo pieces in their 5-card combo package into their deck. People are putting Life Void tempo stuff into their Blizzstrix piles. I don't know why. Like, I've seen people put the Life Void package in just weird, nonsensical decks for the fact of, I'm going to high roll this Life Void and go aggro, but it then makes the rest of your deck worse in some sense. That's my thoughts on Life Void. I don't think it necessarily needed to be banned for power level. I understand that it was just really frustrating to play against, and I think that seeing how decks have progressed, I don't necessarily know if it was problematic, but it definitely was extremely frustrating to see your opponent be able to play a strong combo and not be able to interact with it. So it's good that it got banned in that sense. Unfortunately, it gets errata, so it will never come back on the stage. But the errata is really cool and obviously more thematic with Artemis, wanting you to suppress cards on your opponent's field to get the full capabilities of the card out of the suppressed stuff. So that is really cool. It's a better design card than the old Like a Void, but unfortunately, we're never going to get the old Like a Void Champion Artemis. We're not going to get Champion Artemis, Escape from Tartarus, from the looks of it, ever again. So unfortunate, but yeah, there's the bans and restricted list. Just wanted to talk about those. And we're going to talk about Lifestream now. Oh boy. Alright, so Lifestream, if you didn't already know, Dan dropped a bunch of Lifestream reveals at Cards HQ in person. So we're going to talk about all the Lifestream reveals, especially some from the videos. There's a bunch of Lifestream reveals out there, but we're only going to talk about the officially released Lifestream stuff. You know what I'm talking about. So, let's talk about Lifestream cards, starting with Aphrodite. So, Aphrodite is a 1-cost water divine rune with the divine text of adding up to 3 to it. You can disenchant 1 water from this Aphrodite in order to search for a card the same name as a water lustral on your field and add it to your hand. This is really cool design-wise because you're finding this, the lover or the soulmate of the Elestral on board kind of thing. Thematically, it's really cool what it functionally does for your game. So, okay, yeah, play, I don't know, Mustation. You can go search another Mustation. You find another Mustation. Whoop-de-doo, you have a 1-cost searcher for anything that you've already played. The cool part of this is if you're playing titled form. So if you're playing Bubloon, you can search for Bubloon Champion of Aphrodite, which is a card we'll get into in a little bit. If you're playing Galaxy, you can search up Galaxy Champion of Poseidon. So it makes this interesting deck building situation where you kind of want to build this tutoring toolbox of pairs of Elestrals. But until we see more support or more titled forms, I don't know if Aphrodite is going to do too much. So it comes down to with Aphrodite, for Aphrodite to be good, Aphrodite needs to have lots of cards with titles of Elestrals that we already have that are good, that want to work together. So we want to see more water Elestrals that are good. So more Drataguas, more Kerbeses, more water Elestrals that are good, more Eddies, things that we're already playing, and things we want to find to go with the things we're already playing. So that's kind of where Aphrodite lies. Until we see more Aphrodite support or other cards in water that we want to play with titles, we'll have to see if Aphrodite's any good. 1-cost searchers, generally good. Repeatable 1-cost searcher seems pretty good if you have cards you want to keep dropping on the board. So what this ends up being is looking like maybe an aggressive supporter tool where it's just like play aggressive water Elestral, search up another copy of aggressive water Elestral and drop it. Search up it again and drop it. So play Eddie, search Eddie. Next turn, play Eddie, search Eddie, play Eddie, search maybe new Eddie, and keep going like that. So that'd be really cool to see where it goes. Until we actually see more Aphrodite stuff, it's just fine. It's a better costed Aeolus, but more restricted Aeolus. It does search 2 drops, and 3 drops. So you could potentially drop a Majesty Champion of Poseidon and go search another Majesty up for some reason. Kind of interesting. So, really cool card. See where it goes. Next up, we're going to talk about more Frost. Chimera form. Frost finally has a 5 attacker. So will this see play? Yes, because it has 5 attack. Additionally, it has a it's an okay effect, but a very good effect of Morphrost. So you can discard a Morphrost in order to draw a card. So if you're playing a more significant Morphrost package, you can discard Bat Form, draw a card. Maybe you discard your Terraform turn 1. Draw a card, replacing your hand for something else. Following turn, discard a Bat Form, get the Terraform back. You have some more stuff in your Underworld. Now you have a Morphrost with 5 attack and like a Terror with, I don't know, or not Terror, sorry, A-Bomb. There's lots of Morphrost forms, but this is very good. Will it make Morphrost a more playable package on its own? Possibly, because Scorpio is already good at dealing with defensive bodies. You have A-Bomb, which is pretty high in attack. You have Bat Form. Now you have another way to use Bat Form significantly to get things back into play. You have things like Terraform for control options. So there's really cool and tons of different weird, cool options to play with Morphrost. So I'm curious to see where the Morphrost engine goes. I do think you can make a Morphrost deck now with a little bit of other help from the Frost element, but playing a solid Morphrost deck, I think this finally kind of rounds out the Morphrost package enough that you can play this kind of aggressive, special casty Morphrost deck of just getting a bunch of 1-drops into play and do stuff with Morphrost. Really cool card. Excited to see where it goes. Next up, this card was revealed earlier today, but I'm not going in any particular order. Hellmounts, a 3/2 for 1 fire. When this Hellmounts discarded, you can special cast it with fire from your Underworld using a spirit from your Spirit deck or Underworld. So what does this card do in Fire? So right now in Fire, the only thing that draws or discards stuff from your own hand is like Comagma, which Dan has mentioned in the video talking about there will be more Fire discard support. So without seeing the more support, you can't really talk about Hellmount other than this is kind of like Fire's Tadpuff now, if you can find ways to discard it. So cards like Golden Apple Discord could go really well with this card, where you just go Golden Apple, discard Hellmount for the cost. Special back into play, your opponent discards a card. Cool, now you have Ascension Fodder to go into like a Leonite or something and play like a control-y deck with Hellmount. That could be cool. Or you play like stuff with Comagma, so now Comagma has a payoff where now you get a Comagma plus a Hellmount on board, and you can cast it with fire from Underworld, so it's a free fire Elestral. If you can get it, if you can discard it for 1 spirit, it's effectively a free special cast. We'll have to see what the support comes out for this card before we talk more about it, but yeah, Hellmount, fire discard synergies kind of signaling for the future. Hopperoo, it's the next card we're going to talk about. It's a 3/4 for 1 Earth. When this Hopperoo deals damage, you can foretell 3 and add an Earth card foretold this way to your hand. So it's kind of like an Apollo for Earth cards if you deal damage, but it's not terribly difficult to deal damage because when this Hopperoo is enchanted by exactly 1 Earth Spirit, I say 1 Earth Spirit because she needs to be properly enchanted, you can attack opponent's Spirit decks directly. So it's allows you to attack directly if it's got 1 Spirit on it. Now you can attack directly with this card, and then the battle step after you've already attacked directly, you go like full moon, bloom, full moon, and swing for a bunch of damage. That'd be hilarious. So I think you can play some shenanigans Earth aggro stuff with Hopperoo. A lot of people, it is an insectoid Elestral, so people are looking at putting in an Ardbud deck, and you can search out Ardbud, I guess. I don't necessarily know if this goes in an Antitan list, just because of the fact that Antitan doesn't need an Earth Searcher. And there's other bugs that you can probably play that fill some of these gaps better, perhaps. It's definitely a cool card. I think there's some really cool stuff you can play with it, which is like, again, the kind of enchant and nexus stuff in battle step after you've already declared the attack to get in directly for free damage. Stuff like that would be really cool to see if people play this like that. It's a cool card. Yes, there's some Antitan synergy with it because it's an insectoid, but Earth still needs homes for a lot of the cards that are played in Earth because Earth doesn't have its own proper archetype deck to play since like base set with Earth Nexus. Earth Nexus doesn't really exist anymore. It's not good enough. It's just Earth tempo stuff doesn't work. Like the Malstation, Viserys, like just trying to tempo with it. There's better tempo decks. So Earth needs a home. This needs to find a home. So Earth needs some decks for homes to be in. Antitan is really a lunar deck in my opinion, so we'll see where Hopperoo lands. I think it's a fine card, but there needs to be Earth decks to actually play it in. Next up we have Royal Ottle, a 2/2 for 1 solar. When an opponent declares an attack, you can foretell 3, negate the attack. If a solar Elestral was foretold this way, then add 1 solar Elestral foretold this way to your hand. I've seen 2 camps on this card. There's this card is insane. Actually, 3 camps. There's this card's insane, broken, blah, 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 blah. this card's terrible, blah, 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 blah. And there's the people in the middle going, I can see it work. So let's talk about the best case scenario for this card is you play Royal Otto and 37 other Soul Elestrals. You play Royal Otto and it never gets outed because you just add a card to your hand every single turn. That's not good. That's not a good way to use this card because that deck won't do well if you are 100% on Royal Otto protecting everything. Additionally, let's talk about removal. So Spectaris doesn't work on this because Spectaris is battle step, so you're going to want to suppress it before you attack or use things like Earthquake, Boom Bats. Removal. To me, in my perspective of this card, this is a foamy. This is effectively a foamy. It's going to eat a bunch of removal. It's going to eat suppression. People are just going to find ways to deal with it without actually battling it. And if they can't destroy it, or let's say you're playing it in Apollo and they know you have Soul Elestrals on the top of your deck, they just won't attack you, and then you don't get to add cards to your hand. So if you're playing Royal Otto, you're going to probably play this in a deck that has a bunch of Ascensions, or maybe you can build some Turbo Foggy stuff with like Royal Otto and Tsunami and Shield, and like just stop all the battle steps you possibly can and make a control deck out of it. But it's a card that you need to build around or already have a deck that has a significant amount of solar Elestrals to add to your hand. When you're looking at 3 cards, you have roughly 34, 35 cards left in your deck when you play Royal Otto, if you play it turn 1. So 1 in 3 cards need to be solar on average, solar Elestrals to add to your hand to negate the attack. So you need to run 12-ish Soul Elestrals minimum to make this work. And even then, you can still whiff pretty consistently on not finding those. So you're probably going to want to play this in a deck that has 19 to like 25 Soul Elestrals in it. And is that deck going to be good? Probably not. I mean, Champions Apollo stuff, maybe. If you can do like the Soul Bell, you have all the cows, etc. So you can add the big cows to your hand, leave the little cows on top of your deck for the following turns. Special cast Soul Bells as you're negating attacks if you're foretelling. So cool stuff with Royal Otto. I don't think it's that dangerous of a card. I know people are scared about just the negate every attack step, but if your opponent's concerned about the card advantage, they don't have to attack it right away. And if they're concerned about just getting through Royal Otto, you could whiff. It's going to be an Earthquake Magnet, a Royal Magnet, a Boom Bat Magnet, a Suppression Magnet if people play more Artemis and Suppression tools or Monsoons and stuff like that. There's tons of ways to get around this card, but it is very cool and interesting. So that's what I have for reveals for now. I know Dan brought a few different cards to Cards HQ as well that he played personally and didn't give out, so I don't have those to show you, but Humburst title form for Apollo, and a new Glimbat and Novacore are also in Lifestream, but you can find people talking about that in the reveal chat in Discord. He played them, didn't give them out, so I don't have those to show you for today, but those are all the revealed cards for Lifestream so far. Really cool stuff. And now I just want to jump into this last bit, which is a comment that Dan put into Discord earlier. So put this up on the screen for you guys to read along. So I've seen quite a bit of discussion on this and the revealed cards thread. This is particularly talking about counter runes and interaction in the game. Enjoy the discourse and feedback. It's been constructive, insightful, and I think helpful for players to express their pain points or wins in the game. The surface solutions seem simple, but as quick scan through the convos, you'll see the opinions differ quite a lot amongst players. There are players who don't like counter runes at all, want to limit them all or ban them all, but then they're very load-bearing, so you have to replace them. Some people think the counter runes that we have is cool and interesting and fine. Other players don't. So Dan's thoughts on the matter. I think we all want something similar, more varied deck building options, more diversity among decks, and less reliance on few powerful cards that fit in every deck. These are all things working towards, but it does take some time. So from the beginning, the goal was never to invalidate old sets, rush power creep, or take Elestrals into a different game so soon in its life. I know those of us who have been here since the beginning, it's easy to be a bit exhausted with certain cards, but for new players, a centralized rune suite is in a lot of ways positive to ease their learning into the game. Yeah, so if you're going to the game and you can say, I know what Ambrosia, Gorgon's Shield, and PTA do, you know kind of the interactions that you're playing around on your own turn, so your own plays can be built around those common cards that you see, making it easier to get into some of the more competitive aspects of Celestial. That's a really interesting point that Dan makes. The goal of the next few sets, specifically set 6, which is lifestream, 7 and 8, is to introduce a few different things, so his bullet points continue. A new conditional removal that allows various elements to raid Elestrals more specifically in the context of their elements, so less splashability, decent power level in the context of those archetypes. So that to me screams things like Cryoblast. It's good against things that aren't in Frost, so more situational removal, maybe not as powerful as Cryoblast or resting on your laurels. But we see things like Earthquake is just generic, you just splash it. So maybe more conditional removals along things like how Cryoblast work. New counter runes that can fill some of the roles of Gorgon's Gaze and others. Currently, Gorgon's Gaze is the only real Elestral's negate, and removing it, in his opinion, would not have some pretty major consequences. In due time, we'll be able to include Elemental Focus Negation that's a bit less splashable, but can serve similar functions and not overload 5 effects in one card. So we do have things like Dense Fog, we have Monsoon, we have a lot of suppression things that will stop our opponents from activating effects, but yeah, as far as negating Elestral's effects on the chain, Gorgon's, I believe, is the only card that does that in the game. Additionally, it also stops you from attacking, stops you from ascending, it does a lot. So 5 effects on one card is a lot. Gorgon's is very load-bearing because it's so powerful and does everything. So breaking that up into different effects or new cards that have Elestral negates or ways to just negate Elestral effects would be helpful in kind of feeling better about limiting or banning Gorgons. Fair enough. More cards are in current Divine usage. Uplift those strategies and allow more gameplay and archetype-focused strategies as opposed to primarily focused around good stuff piles. So we have titled forms that create archetypes, champion Zeus, champion Poseidon. They want to run with their Divine runes, so a lot of the kind of strategies and deck archetypes are being built around those. They don't necessarily need to focus around them to be a proper archetype. Like look like Blitztrix or Morfrost, they are their own built-up archetypes. So more ways to build up those strategies, fair enough, Dan. More focus on Nexus cards that generate advantage opposed to remove opponent's advantage. So I guess that's commentary on Kinleo and Equal Links limits where it's just, I pop your cards and I snowball. I pop your cards and I snowball. Fair. Omni runes will be few and far between for a while, as the focus will be not only including more element-focused runes, but also be putting the larger focus on including a more varied rune pool into the set. Set 6 has roughly 22 new runes. Again, that's Lifestream, which is the most since base set, if he's not mistaken. Maybe Moonrise has more with all the lunar phases, but we see really cool rune designs like the winds, the lunar phases, so there's stuff coming. 22 new runes is a lot. Are they all going to be counter runes? No. But that does lead into maybe having more interesting runes, and if they're not going to be Omni, more particular deck building is going to be needed to fit good runes in your deck if they're not matching on elements, or maybe pushes decks with more powerful rune suites in those elements to be stronger, which would be unfortunate, but ideally they're all about the same strength level, and it's a matter of mixing and matching limitedly because you can't fit them all into one deck. And then Dan kind of caps this all off with, I know there's some growing, and there are some that are growing impatient. I can read. And I can understand that. I'm not here to make the game for 3 years and vanish. He's building a foundation for the next 20 years. Some things will get right, some not so much, but we'll continue to learn, adapt, and make the best choices we can to get in the game in the best place. I take this part of Elestrals very seriously. It's probably what I consider the most essential part of my job, because without a good game that people can enjoy, we're failing on our number one objective. To be clear, I don't believe we are failing at this moment, but I understand the discontent from the players who have played for a long time. We are failing on our number one objective, which is to have a fun, good game. Dan doesn't think that. I mean, there's obviously the changes. People get frustrated with cards. There's the ban limited list to kind of address those. Fair enough. Players do get frustrated with seeing the same things pop up over and over again. Even if we have new strategies with counter runes, the counter runes are always there, and they're propping up the game to allow so many other strategies work, but that's not necessarily because those strategies are so balanced against each other. It's more so that everyone has these same counter runes that allow them to, if the power level is like 80% of the counter runes is the power level, the other 20% of deck doesn't matter as much. It just kind of comes to personal expression, and that's what the argument that some people have, is that the counter runes prop up so much of every deck that the actual interesting parts of the decks don't matter as much. So that's kind of what that discontent is coming from, which is, I don't want to say it's an accurate argument, but it's definitely a fair argument that the game would be more diverse if there were less counter runes that you're playing in every deck, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the diversity of the format is wider because of it. We might also see the deck start leaning towards like 3 or 4 best decks because now these cards have the best interaction pieces and uses pieces because all these counter runs are banned. But we'll have to see where things go in the future. You have my commitment to doing the best I can, putting my energy into making Elestrals a game that can be enjoyed as many people as possible. That may not mean Elestrals is perfect for you right now or even ever, but I hope you find comfort in knowing your perspective is heard and that we're actually trying. Thank you for your thoughts and support. So that's just a really important note I wanted to just bring up that Dan had. So we're going to pretty much cap off the video with that here. Again, long video, lots of updates, lots of news, lots of stuff going on. What's up? Thank you for supporting me with my 1,000 subs. Sub if you're not already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys all have a great day. Peace.